Alright, welcome back folks. This is the last part in my 4 videos regarding factoring. We talked about 3 methods already. We talked about it's a kind of a guess and check method for really basic ones. We talked about the Xbox method, and then we also talked about factoring when we are looking at special patterns, like the difference of two squares or perfect square trinomials. The last way we're going to talk about isn't even really a method per se, as it's the first step you should always take when you're trying to factor something. Um, as I've said in class, we want to try to make factoring as easy as possible, and the best way to do that is to factor out any common factors that might have. So it's called factoring out a monomial. So with this example that we have here, we have 5x squared minus 20. Now looking at this, I see that it's a binomial. We have two terms here. We have a 5x squared minus 20, and I'm kind of stuck. I don't really see anything that can happen with this. I mean, the only thing that I can do when I have two terms is I can try to do the difference of two squares, but 5 and 20 aren't perfect squares. But what is true about 5 and 20 is that 5 and 20 both have a common factor of 5. So I'm going to factor that 5 out of both of these terms. So 5 times x squared. 20 minus 5 is 4. And now what I have here is x squared minus 4. This does fall under that difference of two squares pattern. Here we squared x to get x squared. We squared 4 to get, we squared 2 to get 4. So using the difference of two squares pattern, we now get 5 times x plus 2 times x minus 2. So without being able to, without factoring out that 5, we really can't do this. We can't factor this. I shouldn't say we can't, but it's a lot more difficult to factor this without that option in there. Let's try the next one. Let's try the 2x squared plus 8x. 2x squared plus 8x. With this, again, we're looking for common factors between both of these. Well, I see that both of these are divisible by 2, and both have a common factor of 1x. An x here, and there are two x's there. So I'm going to factor out that x here. When I factor these out, when I factor out 2x from 2x squared, you can think of it as dividing it out as well. When I factor 2x out of 2x squared, I'm just left with that 1x. And in a similar manner, when I divide 2x out of this, I'm just left with 4. And at this, we're done. We have 2x and then x plus 4 as its own binomial. There's nothing further to do with this one. So those are two relatively simple examples where we just factor out a monomial. Let's take a look at the last two. I'm going to get this cleared out. Let's take a look at the last two and see how are we going to progress forward with that. So let me get my tools ready here, and we're going to make my thickness. Nope. There we go. All right, so let's try this next one. We have 6x squared plus 15x plus 9. And at this point, I look at 6, 15, and 9. Those are all divisible by 3. When I divide a 3 out of this, I get 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. And from here, we can use a variety of methods. We can kind of use the guess and check method that we had before. We can use the Xbox method. I'm going to go back to the classic guess and check method for this. If you want to use the Xbox method, that's fine. But with this, in order to get 2x squared, I know I have to have a 2x and an x. I know that this plus sign tells me my symbols will be the same. Specifically, they're both going to be positive, which is really fortunate. And now I'm going to put into these spots factors of 3, but when I do that, they have to combine and give me this 5x. So my factors of 3 are 1 and 3. And if I put them, think of it this way, if I put a 3 here and a 1 here, when I FOIL it, I'm going to have 2x times 3, which will give me 6x, which is already too big. So we're going to put a 1 here and a 3 here. If we were to FOIL it, 2x times 1 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x, and those will combine to give us our middle term of 5x. This is the factored expression that we have right here. All right. Now the last one I think is interesting as well, where we have 4x squared plus 4x. That's coming in poorly. Let's do this. Let's delete those out. Get our squiggly line back. we have 4x squared plus 4x minus 4. These all clearly have the common factor of 4 in them, so I'm going to factor that 4 out. Then we have x squared plus x minus 1. And then we're going to try our different ways of factoring this, where we could try the Xbox method. We could, set up the factor brackets below it, 4. Then we have x and x, and one will be positive and one will be negative. And then, the only options are 1 and 1. But when we do this, if we were to check this, come on, you. If we were to check this, we'd see that we wouldn't get a middle term of x. In fact, the middle term would go away. So, actually, in this situation, this does not work. It is at this point, it is as factored as it can be. By factoring that 4 out, it is done being factoring. So, just as a quick recap on this, whenever you are factoring polynomials, you always want to make sure before you start anything else, you factor out those common factors. And it'll make all your work a lot easier. Even here, you could have used other methods for this one here and it still would have worked. But by factoring the 3 out first, it makes it a much, much easier problem. So, that's all I have. I hope these were helpful compared to the examples we did in class. If you have questions, be sure to let me know. Thank you.